What's up, everybody? This is Ruben here. Here's another video. This is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a movie review, but it's going to be like a versus, whatever. It's going to be Triple Frontier versus Extraction. I know you probably saw the thumbnail. You're like, okay, what is this about here? So this is these are Netflix movies that were on Netflix that had kind of two different paths to how they were made and the result in two different quality of movies, right? I mean, it's kind of weird. And the better movie costs less to make. But first, like, subscribe, tell me what you guys think. Hit me in the comments, tell me. I make all kinds of different videos, so it'll change from here and there. Sometimes sports, sometimes, local topics, whatever it is, right? So this particular one is about a movie review of sorts. So the twinge on this is you look at Triple Frontier. It got a lot of rave reviews before the movie came out, but when it came out, then it kind of tanked. It kind of stunk up the place, right? Now, there's a reason for that, right? There's a clear reason. One, they have production issues. The movie was way over budget, $115 million. Some say over 150, up to $150 million. There was a lot of big name stars: Ben Affleck, Oscar Isaac, Pedro Pascal, Charlie Hunnam. They put all those big names in there to try to help make this movie kind of go over the hump in terms of viewership. Obviously, it's Netflix. We don't know what the numbers did, but everybody seems to agree that this movie wasn't well made, right? The plot didn't hold a lot of weight to it. It didn't have any water. It wasn't consistent. It wasn't even halfway realistic, right? So then you have the opposite. You have Extraction, which is similar in nature, action-packed scenes. Both of them cinematically were well done. Okay, we're not going to boo-hoo on both Triple Frontier and Extraction that way, right? Cinematically, they were done. Nobody's taking anything away from that. However, the way that Extraction was set up was Chris Hemsworth is like the only star in the movie. It wasn't star heavy. It only cost $65 million to make. It was basically produced by the Russo brothers, Marvel Cinematic Universe, Infinity War, all that stuff like that. So there was a level of execution that was a little bit higher. It was basically way higher, probably magnitudes of 2 or 3 higher in terms of how this was executed, right? So it's kind of ironic because Ben Affleck was doing the whole Batman thing, and then the Marvel Cinematic Universe basically did Extraction, right? That kind of camp of people. Not everybody, but, if you want to look at it in those terms, right? That's kind of what you saw with that. So you have Triple Frontier. Here's the problems with Triple Frontier. One, it was a bunch of issues. The Hurt Locker lady, I think that wrote it, or co-wrote Hurt Locker, she was attached to it. She got unattached to it. A whole bunch of other stuff happened. A lot of big name stars like Johnny Depp, Will Smith. If you go down the list, they were in, they were out, they were in, they're out. So there was issues, right? That movie, I think, was originally Warner Brothers, and then it got purchased by Netflix. So they had some money into it, so they had to power through this, right? So there's plot holes in that thing like crazy. Whoever wrote this, the rewrites, they didn't do enough rewrites, right? Number one, the way that they portrayed the cartels being so unorganized with billions and billions of dollars. A low-level cartel boss, yeah, I could see that, right? Some guy who doesn't make as much, I could see him having a whole bunch of holes in how they do things, right? But they're very sophisticated. Just from what you see, they're very sophisticated at that level. When you have billions of dollars hidden inside a house, it's not just, they don't just leave it in plain sight. So there's a mistake right there, right? That help creates the plot, right? So then there's this whole thing about the whole military personnel, right? But first, let's just look at this. So the cartel wouldn't have that whole area quarantined off. Everybody would have been in their pocket. The military would have been in their pocket. It would have been very locked down, that whole area for miles around. Nobody could even have gotten close. If even anybody got wind of it, whether it's the airports or anything, it would have got shut down right away. For billions of dollars, you don't play those kind of games. People are just more organized than they give them credit for. So there's that. That's the mistake. The military part, they basically said that the military training is garbage, right? So they took this Ben Affleck character who's supposed to be this very precise, calculated guy that goes in there, and he's going to organize this whole thing that's an impenetrable cartel fortress so they could get this money, right? So he goes in there and he makes a bunch of mistakes. Like one, why do you have so many money bags? You don't need that many. You would have never been able to carry that many. So how did that even come in your head? Number two, you should have never took that much money anyway. Somebody with that level of knowledge and training, if this guy was a Navy SEAL sergeant or lieutenant, whatever he was, the guy that was in charge of like the strategic planning, that wouldn't have been an issue. Then when the helicopter goes down, let's just say all that does happen, and the way they attack it, the helicopter goes down, right? They don't take chances like that. How is it that this mountain guy was able to track them down and basically be even with them? When you receive zero training, I don't care how good of an animal tracker you are, these military cats are trained at a higher level than that. They give them no credit, okay? And then so, that being said, that's the holes with that whole story. That's why it was very little credibility to it, very little, when you look at it, you really couldn't give it any much thought, right? So, anyways, that was the issue of Triple Frontier. It cost way too much money, and this is an original movie made by Netflix, right? So Ben Affleck was part of it. He was in and out too, right? So it was all kind of messed up. Then you have the opposite, which is Extraction, right? Extraction is a situation where the Russo brothers, the cinematic Marvel universe, they come in and the car horn, of course, right? I'm just going to keep going. So of course it goes off now, right? So they go in and they make this movie under budget or within budget, $65 million. So it's almost 3 times, Triple Frontier is almost 3 times the cost of Extraction. It's a good movie. It's a good story. It's a good plot. The action scenes are tremendous. The cinematography, on both of them are great, but the cinematography on Extraction was a little bit more. The people involved with that, the guy that was, I think the director was a stuntman himself. So he got in there and he was holding the camera. Some of those scenes were really, really, really well made. It was like those really long, uncut fight scenes. There was a lot of that in Extraction. I thought it was really well made. It didn't have a whole bunch of moving parts, right? And so the parts that you did look at were very well meticulously put in place. So that being said, when you have a movie like Extraction, and they were both made by Netflix, they were both original movies by Netflix, it's such an interesting look into how the movie making process actually works, right? You can tell that there was issues with Triple Frontier because they never really addressed the problems and they just kept going with it. However, kudos to Netflix, right? If you knew from Triple Frontier, doing Triple Frontier, you knew that you were having a lot of problems. You bought that script, you invested money into probably $10 or $15 million into it. You got these actors on board. You had original, Oscar-winning directors or writers on board, and they kind of backed out. And then so now you have to muscle through it. So to Netflix's defense, the fact that they got that movie made after all the problems, they could have just tanked it and let it go and moved on. But the fact that they followed through with it and they kept it shows that they kind of just kept going with it. You have money invested. Netflix has to put content out. Netflix has to keep going forward. They can't look back. There was a lot of holes in that movie. There was a lot of mistakes that were made with that, but they had to put it out, and they did, right? Was it the best you could have done? No. Look at Extraction. Extraction was made a little bit more streamlined, right? The process, they fleshed it out. Maybe the people that were responsible for the debacle that was Triple Frontier maybe weren't part of Netflix no more. Who knows? The point that I'm trying to get at is that it's an interesting look at it, is that you can't necessarily kind of crap on Triple Frontier because it did get made. People got paid for that. There's a lot of people behind the scenes that are part of that whole production process, and kudos for Netflix to keeping that thing rolling and keeping those people paid, and then people say, well, they're going to make money anyway because they have jobs. No. That movie got made so you can go to the next one. So people got paid, and Netflix put out some content. It wasn't the best, but it was something. So would I say if I was going to go watch Extraction versus Triple Frontier, of course I'll watch Extraction. It was very well made. The only hole in that story that I could think about in Extraction was this Chris Hemsworth having all this integrity about the kid, right? About the kid, him connecting with them because his son got lost, and him breaking down to these strangers, these people that do this type of thing. I don't know a bunch of military people, but the military people seem like a guarded group, and if you're not part of their inner circle, you're out. If you're not part of their inner circle, you're not going to be able to get in instantaneous like that. So I question those kind of scenarios. I know it pulled on heartstrings and it was kind of effective that way, but I don't think that would have really happened, right? So I think that's kind of something that when you look at it, maybe that could have been done a different way, where it was accidentally brought out that that's what happened, or maybe the kid looked at something he had, or he fell asleep with his hand, with the picture of his kid or something. But that was the only kind of hole in the whole thing I can see that maybe would be in it. But Extraction was made very well. It was very interesting. It was an action-packed movie. It's worth watching. On the converse opposite is Triple Frontier. I watched them both, and knowing what I know now about the history of Triple Frontier, I probably wouldn't have watched it, because when you know that there's a bunch of mistakes or a bunch of things that happen wrong before the movie even gets started, you know maybe to stay away. So, anyways, that's my take on it. Tell me what you guys think. Triple Frontier versus Extraction. Who got the better of the whole deal? I liked Extraction. The action scenes, everything was good. Like, subscribe. Tell me what you guys think. Talk to you guys tomorrow.